You look like the guy was in my class. Are you a freshman?
Nah.
What's your last name? Arthur, you're the designer?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
It was beautiful.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Did Rachel tell you to get off of
Four more. Four more. Going once. Going twice. Okay. You're welcome.
Do you want mine? No, I just like it. Wait, I forgot something.
Sure. I'll be here.
Excuse me, we'll begin in the next 3 minutes, around 7:05. And so if you can please bear with us until then. Thank you.
I think
Hello, hello. I'd like to begin by asking everyone to please silence your phones so that we can have a wonderfully uninterrupted night of poetry. Hello and welcome, faculty, staff, students, and poetry-loving community, both local and distant, to the 2023 Catherine Burns Larmore Visiting Poet Series reading. My name is Matthew B. Kelly, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as curator for the Larmore series. The Larmore series is named after 1930 Emory Henry alumna Catherine Burns Larmore as tribute to her gift of teaching, love of literature and expression through poetry, and the remarkable Burns family and its roots in southwestern Virginia. The series was created by Burns's daughters, Catherine C. Larmore and Phoebe Larmore, both of whom could not make the series events in person, but do join us today via live stream and asked to share this message with you all. The Larmore sisters are delighted that Sherwin is here to share his poetry with students and the larger community. May his complex images astound each of you with the power of his poetic voice, and may the power of his poetic voice stretch your individual perspectives in mind and spirit. The Larmore sisters created the Burns Endowment in the hopes that they could share the beauty of poetry with the Emory and Henry community as their mother did with them. It is born from those hopes that I come to present this year's visiting poet, Sherwin Bitsui. Sherwin Bitsui is the author of 3 collections of poetry, Dissolve, Flood Song, and Shapeshift. He is a recipient of a Whiting Award, an American Book Award, and the PEN Open Book Award. His poems have appeared in Narrative, Black Renaissance Noir, American Poet, The Iowa Review, Lit, and elsewhere. He is Diné of the Bitterwater Clan, born of the Many Goats Clan, and has received fellowships from the Lannan Foundation and the Native Arts and Culture Foundation. He currently teaches poetry at the Institute of American Indian Arts Creative Writing Program and Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. If you would like to purchase any of Sherwin's books, you may do so through the English department. To encounter Sherwin's poetry is to encounter the nonsensical. Shoes made of ocean water, slippers made of steam. Sherwin creates a world in his poetry where fingers have ghosts, wind can succumb to the time-addled process of fossilization, and things and places do as they please. One might find that this world is one of fabulation, that Sherwin has abandoned logic and reason to grasp at some distant truth. But what might happen if we suspend our own senses of logic? Who do we become in the interstices of our severance of sense? In an interview published in the seminal text, The Diné Reader, Sherwin talks of his love of movement between language, how he loses himself between modes of thought and perspectives. His poetry places us into this world of disparate images and tells us to look, witness for yourself. The poems ask, nay, demand, us to form new logic regarding a world we believe to already know. Sherwin's work creates for the reader, as poetry of the highest order often does, a new lens for us to see. Not only to see the world, poetry says, but to see ourselves. Please join me in welcoming the 2023 Catherine Burns Larmore Visiting Poet, Sherwin Bitsui.
Thank you for that introduction, Matthew. Thank you for hosting me, and thank you to Emory and Henry University and everybody here for coming tonight. I'm going to introduce myself in Navajo first. It's just a custom, and it's a way for me to locate myself here. And we're a matrilineal culture, so I am naming my mother's clan, and I'm naming my father's mother's clan, and my grandfather's father's clan, et cetera, et cetera. So these are these clans are old. I don't know where they originated, but we're still here. So Yate, Sherwin Bitsui, Inchia, McGlothlin Center, Tlizílaaní Bashin, Kiani Dashe, Domai Dishkiji Edashinala, that's I Diné. Greetings, my name is Sherwin Bitsui, and I'm of the Deer Springs Bitterwater people. I'm born for the many goats people, and then my maternal grandparents are the Towering House people, and then my paternal grandparents are the Coyote Pass people. And that's who I am in the world. I'm originally from the Navajo Nation. I grew up on the Navajo Reservation in the high desert of northern Arizona. And it's interesting to be here. It's a little moist for me. I'm used to like dryness. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And all this green is kind of freaking me out. Yeah, lovely to be here. And I'm going to share with you some poems from, I'm going to share like some older poems from my books, and I'm going to share with you some new work that I've been writing since the last book came out. I'll begin with Flood Song, and this is a book that I wrote mostly in Tucson when I was living there. So there's a lot of references to the Sonoran Desert, a lot of references to cacti, cactus, and the beginning of the poem, because it's a poem about water, it's a poem about flooding. This opening poem is one word, and it's a Navajo word. And it's the word for water. Twa. 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 I bite my eyes shut between these songs. They are the sounds of blackened insect husk folded over elk teeth in a tin can. They are gull wings fattening on cold air, flapping in a paper sack on the chlorine-stained floor. They curl in corners spiked and black-thatched, stomp across the living room ceiling, pull our hair one strand at a time from electric sockets, and paint our stems with sand in the kitchen sink. They speak a double helix, zigzag a tree trunk, bark the tips of its leaves with cracked amber. They plant whispers where shouts incinerate into hisses. Stepping through the drum's vibration, I hear gasoline trickle alongside the fenced-in panorama of the reed we climbed in from, and slide my hands into shoes of ocean water. I step onto the gravel path of swans paved across lake sand. Wrap this blank page around the exclamation point slammed between us. The storm lying outside its fetal shell folds back its antelope ears and hears its heart pounding through powdery earth underneath dancers flecking dust from their ankles to thunder into rain. I am unable to pry my fingers from the axe, unable to utter a word without grandfather's accent rippling around the stone flung into his thinning mattress. Years before, he would have named this season by flattening a field where grasshoppers jumped into black smoke. A crow snaps its beak over and over again. The past is a blurry splotch of red cross-hatched with neon light on the drive south, windows pushed down. You scoop pellets of canned air and ocean across sand dunes, across the waning lick of moonlight on the dashboard to crease the horizon between petals of carved snow. Bluebirds chirp icy rocks from their stomachs and crash, wings caked heavy with the dark mud of a gunmetal sky. To the earth's bandages, shivering with cold spells and convulsions in the market underneath an avalanche of apples. A red-tailed hawk scrapes the sandstone wall with its beak. A shower of sparks skates across the morning sky. You think this bottle will open a canyon wall and light a trail trampled by gloved hands as you inhale earth, wind, water through the gasoline nozzle at trail's end, a flint spear driven into the key switch. You think you can return to that place where your mother held her sleeves above the rising tides, saying, "We are here again, on the road covered with television snow. We are here again." The song has thudded. I'll skip around a little bit. Flicking off the light switch, lichen buds the curved creases of a mind pondering the mesquite tree's dull ache. As it gathers its leaves around clouds of spotted doves, calling them in rows of 12 back from their winter sleep. Doves' eyes black as nightfall shiver on the foam coast of an Arctic dream, where whale ribs clasp and fasten you to the language of shifting ice. Seeing into those eyes, you uncoil their telephone wires, gather their inaudible lions with plastic forks, tongue their salty ribbons, and untie their weedy stems from your prickly fingers. You stop to wonder what like sounded like when held under glacier water. How Nahokos, the north, felt under the weight of all that loss. And this is a book-length poem. It's a song, and I wrote it mostly in the Sonoran Desert in Tucson. I mentioned that earlier. And there in the monsoon seasons, the flooding would take place. It was really beautiful. So I was like, how can I write a poem like that? How can I write a poem that floods? It was really an essential question to me. I cover my eyes with electrical wires. See yellow dawn, eclipse stop signs turn green and screech into phosphorescence. Each flickering finger, a memory of a flashing yellow sign, blinks between charcoal sheets of monsoon rain, then slices through the thawing of our hunger with the cracked eaves of a shattered house. Its autobiographical muscle, stringing trees into a forest, convulses only to be flattened underneath its metallic leaves and sold as bricks for its basement of fire. What land have you cast from the blotted out region of your face? What nation stung by watermarks was filmed out of extinction and brought forth resembling frost? What offspring must jump through the eye of birth to be winked at when covered with brick sweat? What ache piled its planks on the corner pier now crumbles onto motionless water, sniffed at by forest smoke? What makes this song a string of bees seized by cement cracks when the camera climbs through the basement window, winter clouds coiling through its speckled lens? What season cannot locate an eye in the dark of the sound of the sun gyrating into red ochre, after I thought you noticed my language was half wren, half pigeon, and together we spoke a wing pattern on the wall that was raised to keep us out. There, where calling became culling, distance distanced, in a mere scrape of enamel on yellow teeth. What father woke, turned over his wife? He didn't want to, she didn't want to, but he pushed until the baby leapt through. Now, 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 strummed into a chorus of burn marks on ceilings, or police sirens, fruit magpie skulls on trees of monsoon lightning. What is how the song chimed in the wilderness. And I'm going to go to the last part, which is the song, the sort of vision of this piece. In this poem, there's a singer and the speaker is finding his song, and I think at this last part, the speaker has a vision about the present. I wanted to swallow the song's flowers, swim diagonally in its arched back, its shadows stinging my hand with black pollen. We were on the same surgical table, waiting for the surgeons to carve us back into shape. The drum pulsed somewhere in the dark, and I heard a woman unbraiding her hair. I felt morning songs leap from the Hawan smoke hole and curl outward from the roof of the sky, gliding through us like rain. I sang until the sun rose. The shadows of my face grew into a swallow with folded wings and darted into the fire. A cloud became a skull and crashed to the earth above Black Mesa. The cloud wanted to slip through the coal mines and unleash its horses. It wanted to crack open bulldozers and spray their yoke over the hills so that a new birth cry would awaken the people who had fallen asleep. It wanted to push their asymmetrical ramblings into the weft of a storm blanket, dye it hazel and sink it into the rising waters. A city dragged its bridges behind it and finally collapsed in a supermarket, asking for the first apple that was ever bitten. No one questioned the sand anymore. No one untucked themselves from their bodies and wandered the streets without knowing their clans. Everyone planted corn in their bellies and became sunlight washing down plateaus with deer running out of them. The phone was ringing through it all. The line was busy when I picked the axe and chose the first tree to chop down. A little bit of that song. Oh, this a little awkward. And then I'll read a little bit of Dissolve. Dissolve is a kind of Albuquerque book, I suppose. And I don't know, like Breaking Bad is almost like a documentary though. I wouldn't say it's the Breaking Bad RV gets through my neighborhood all the time. It's funny. But you know, I think a lot of us have relatives in these places, and some of them have very difficult circumstances in terms of just living in the world and a lot of addiction issues and such. And you know, I usually write those kind of poems that are really abstract and they kind of do what you just heard. But lately I've been moving into narrative. And this is a poem that I didn't want to write, but it wrote itself. And it's a poem about it's a poem about love. It's a poem about what you do if you have a family member who's lost in a city, in a dangerous place, who needs help. And so this is loosely about my brother. And I never wanted to write about family when I was writing poems. I never wanted to mine my family. So when this book came out, I was really afraid of what my brother would say or my parents. And then Joy Harjo, former poet laureate, famous Cherokee poet, or Muskogee poet, mentioned this poem in an article we did. We had an interview in Bomb magazine, and he read it. He read the section, and he texted me, and he said, "Thank you," and he said, I'm sorry I put you guys through this." You know? So this is about a brother and sister who go into town to pull their brother from death. The city's neon embers strike the asphalt's blank page, where the story pens itself nightly, where ghosts weave their oily hair into his belt of ice, dress him in pleated shadows, and lay him fetal on the icy concrete, the afterbirth of sirens glistening over him. We drain our headlights on his scraped forehead and watch the December moon two-step across his waxen eyes. His mouth shallow pond, a reflecting pool, where his sobs leak into my collar. One more, just one more, he whispers, as he thaws back into the shape of Tlizílaaní, our brother, bruised knees thorning against his chest. We steal away, our wheels moan through sleet and ash. Death places second, third, and fourth behind us. At home on the reservation, Father sifts dried cedar leaves over glowing embers. Mother, hovering above cell phone light, awaits, he's okay, never went out, watched a movie instead. But tonight, my speech has knives that quiver at the ellipses of neon Budweiser signs blinking through the fogged windshield. And I text, I've only rescued a sliver of him. He's only 25 and he smells like blood and piss. His turquoise bracelet snatched for pawn by the same ghost who traded his jacket for a robe of snow and ice. Before inviting him back into the caravan for one more, just one more. And the caravan, it used to be a bar, it was a country bar, very colorful people there. So, I kind of miss it, but now it's a library. So there's a library that's built atop its bones, and the people are still drinking and having fun. It's at the library, hopefully. And I'll go ahead and read the last part of Dissolve. Since we're sort of near the area, I once had I gave a reading in Pennsylvania near a very famous Indian school, a former Indian boarding school called Carlisle, and now it's like Carlisle Military Academy, I believe. But back in the 19th century, a lot of kids were placed on. Children were placed on trains and brought to the East Coast to be assimilated into American culture. And I got to visit this place, and I noticed immediately off the side of the road there were some headstones immediately off the road, and there were these beautiful like marble headstones, and on every one of them you had a tribal name. So I saw Apache, like Sioux, Comanche, Ute, even like Inuit and stuff. So I saw and I realized all of these are children who never went home. Who were taken from their families and brought over here in the East Coast or to Carlisle, and they never went home. And then my host told me, well. Also, on top of that, the cemetery, he said, used to be inside of the grounds, but they dug them up and brought them out here because they wanted to build a soccer field inside. And then I thought, you know, there's this sort of metaphor of native people, or the sort of connective tissue is relocation. And I thought, even in death, even in burial, they were relocated outside also again. But a lot of those bodies are being repatriated and being brought back to the communities. That's a good thing. So I wrote this loosely on that feeling, and at the same time there were these really horrendous moments where a lot of Native kids were doing these sort of suicide pacts, and I was really shocked by it. You know, they would just have a pact. They would all do it on one night, and they did it. You know, in these really communities, I was really shocked by it. So I thought of that, and that really led to the poem itself. And in this case, the children are becoming birds and other beings. A chopping block's cobalt hum, mothing braids of summer lightning, lulls a hatchet's handle loose, and capsizes children, aiming their flint spines toward steering wheels thawing in house fires. Suckled by shadows suckling their feet, enrolled in a disappearing act. They hand-stitch starless skies to their temporary faces. Their scraping is a smear facing another smear. Their sky's blue veins are horse's name through them. Their dream of lightning dreams. The blurring heaves blue as it breathes out sacks of black hair. Their faces mountaining a lake's closed book glimpse smashed cairns, sealed in lizard scales. Their past lays bright eggs when silent lathers dragnets over their mother's words for refrigerator light, moon rock, escape. See how they shiver even when their arms are shined to a high gloss, and the dawn light reveals their stone teeth glinting inside a tree's whimpering. Shifting shape, they pinch shut the keyhole of hunger's toll booth, then release chirping birds from their detachable wrists. We remember their footsteps moored in glass jars, but forget flattened huts spilling their scars over the renaming of past landslides. Their shouts flail from empty school chairs to blurry visions at closing time. The vowels of the starved hang over the sequel of them. They are what ravens' claws would sound like when unzipped from fallen apples. Gathered in thirds of halves, they drain spotlights on police dogs barking at their floating cages. Forearms sliced with ladders. The climb downward climbs up to greet them. A phantom arm feeling wants them to return their feet. Falling from their cut hair, hearth sounds, sunlighting the hallway back to them. Will their torched names walk again as lake water? Will they charge a fee to resharpen the horns of our dull speech? West of dying, they ask to sleep in one another's arms, then unravel from buildings weaving upright where bayonets stab the sea for warmth. Their coiled shadows obsidian as they lace ribbons of cedar bark into black wind, then stretch gauze wrap over gates swelling open from razors glinting in their palms' heat. their imagined tails bridled with spit-soaked ash, striate liquid light to where the dissection begins. Behind their mothers' maced skulls, they push lantern-lit compasses into unmapped seasons, wing wind with red skin. Their viscous tails thaw our tongues' coastlines when they strap Dawn's first lint to a weather of creaking chairs, so black boots won't be captured on cameras, sniffing their bruised masks. Stained glass splinters in their creased mouths, their fists among mirrors growling in other fists. Pixelating through sorrel skin, they silhouette teeth, nailing thick mud to thin mud, and sing our horses to sleep on. Their bark blankets to incubate light bulbs flickering in egg cartons. They inhale the pond's shadow while kneeing our shoulders to rain scent. An overcast of them, scraped from the water's footsteps, cinder the bull's damp chest. Absorbing liquid night through gilled feet, they cackle from sand dunes, silver teeth twitching in their beaks. Moans sip light from dilated pupils. The seizure bids them to stay. The elevator door shuts for the year when they press their palms flat against the fogged rim of the reservation. No sound steals past their squawking. Reaching into their buckskin pouches, they finger the patter of feet loosen. Foreheads torch-lit. They drift above hornet clouds, notice heaving under a corona of rearranged stars. The people wagering for more. They pronounced dawning's expiration date with singed macaw feathers. Suddenly they were this close, this far. This hour, not the ridge, not their jumping off point. The sea drinking through them hears the unraveling also. The scraping of a train engine nearing childhood whimpers under them. What lies beneath naming, they curl outward with wool scent. Still a noose glimmers above the orphaning field. They forget to forget they were ours only during the itching. And I'll finish off with some pieces I've been writing, new work. And the pandemic, COVID really hit my reservation fairly hard. A lot of families, there's a lot of houses that don't necessarily have plumbing out there. They're rural. They're like at the end of a very long dirt road. We're also a culture that has a respect for elders, and we take care of our elders. We take care of our grandparents in the house. So these are multi-level, multi-generational homes, and it was a very frightening what could happen when COVID came around. And we lost so many people. We lost so many storytellers and medicine people. And my mom was also working at the senior center, and she just every week she would say, "Oh, this and this." So it was a very dark time, and I started writing poems that were about memory. I wanted to find poems in my memory, like poetic moments that happened, and I wanted to just retell it, but through a poem. And so there's a couple of instances that happened. This is a poem called Mother. It's called Amma. Soap suds lace mother's hands as she slides her naked son into the plastic tub's green hold. A raft run aground on the kitchen table. His eyelashes woven, taut against the sting. A wash rag arcing his glistening brown back. Oil black, slick hair pressed flat. The kerosene lantern's white side, all adrift in her wind-rattled single wide. So that's a little portrait of my mom, the way I remember it when we were growing up. We lived in a single wide trailer, and our light was like a kerosene lantern. That was the light we had. This is called A Kiss, and it means friend. And we live right near the Hopi Reservation, a completely a different culture. They've been there way longer than Navajos have been there, and they're Pueblo, and they are. We have friendships, we have marriages, we share plans, but there is a distinct difference in terms of their language and our language. And this is a poem. When I was still in high school, I would drive my grandfather around the reservation. You didn't want him on the road with you. You didn't want him driving on the road. You didn't have me driving on the road. And we used to go to like down this canyon in Kings Canyon, Arizona, and he would always pull up, and I would just sit in his car, and he'd be talking to this Hopi farmer, and and again they're talking and they're communicating, but my grandfather didn't speak English, and the Hopi farmer did, but the Hopi didn't speak Navajo either, and all those times I'm sitting there in the car, bored out of my mind, or listening to music, just like waiting to go, impatient. They're over here talking and doing gestures with their hands. And then, only till later I realized, they were signing. They were doing the sign language. And, different people, when they would communicate, different tribal people, a lot of times they would sign language. They would do the sign language. So I was witnessing something that was old and continuous, and it didn't happen again afterwards. But it was really something I thought about. Because they would always talk about farming, about their plants, the rain, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a beautiful thing. So this is about two Navajos who go up to the first mesa. We got invited to a dance ceremony up there. And again, we're strangers to them. But it's also about hospitality. Strangers in this mesa top village. My cousin and I dash for the car. From a small brick house, a voice. You Navajos look lost. Come in, eat. Ladling mutton, squash, and bean soup into our bowls, the man asks, where are you from? Which family? Mutton gristle softening between teeth. I find out long ago my grandfather hauled spring water up the mesa for this man's family. In the window, light-wrapped silhouettes on rooftops, dancers shifting and chanting below them. The man asks if we want more. Bellies full, we decline, shake his hand. On the walk to the car, chants rumble behind us. Driving back down the mesa, I wonder who my grandfather befriended here. If he had family, old friends, perhaps a lover. I think of the many times my grandfather and an old Hopi farmer carved shapes of corn, squash, rain, or no rain with their brown fingers, rolling and cupping the whites of their palms in the shade of Kemis Canyon trading posts. The language between them planted in another time. so the new work is, the West has been on fire. I don't know about out here, but you know, it's kind of dark. Now we're getting a lot of snow, but I wrote a lot of these new pieces under the glow of a forest fire, wondering if that fire is going to come into town. And so this next work is called The Next World, and it's my 4th book. And I'll just read a little bit of it, and we can go. It's called The Next Sky, I'm sorry. Looking in from the next world, eyes still coated with coal dust, we seal black the past. Here we notice ghost hands crackling beneath a flint blade's jagged spike. Here also a windstorm's bellow, cracking open thoughts of crow beaks pinned to smog, bridging a canyon rim to its midnight shadow. And there, under the next sky, hunger-bellied drought skeletons clouds, then unlocks doors wiped clear of the names of seasons, skinned from tire treads. Lured by the solid dark to drag sentences toward closer, I look for the song that held my hand, not the ghost who spit into my mouth and pierced my eyes with rain-scented fingernails. The smoke in the valley, I imagined, was my umbilical cord. But that too spiraled away from the twisting plot's thinness. Sometimes I think pills can bring back the earth photographed in black and white, bring back seasons that visit when summoned by waving cornstalks over fire. Crescents for eye holes, I wear the cross mask sideways. Ask, what is an empty pasture if blotted with horse blood? What ghost lays maps of light and axed spring water? The road here, stashed in evaporating tap water. Howl scribbled on vellum several hours into half circles. Ember steam eyes open to fire tips cornstalks, hours only for the first minute. The wailing withheld blankets his table with drought scent. Failing to squeeze seeds from the highway's voice, the fifth world gasp from smoke-choked light. It neighs at brake lights thrummed awake when coyotes' teeth jewel the mesa's rim. Shivers splinter through a soot-slathered sunray. Its light blue and orange or that orange glowing. Beside the fence's sunlit face, wrapped in a calico quilt, my head tilts, and I see a snow-pecked leaf pressed into tire tread. Hoar-tasseled glow ebbs through my face's final form. Its forgetting stretches dustward, cubicle by cubicle. Within my eyes, shadows are centuries long. They form downward ladders to dried reservoirs. Their scratches spidering my wrists begin their thaw. Their new dimming forecasts my gaiet from its fading rim. It is there I breathe back my last name. Thank you so much.
Can we give one more round of applause for Sherwin and his poet? While I was listening to Sherwin, I was thinking of a connection a student, Katie, made in class today, thinking about James Baldwin and how Baldwin's assertion that to be a writer is not to posit to know an answer, but to ask a question. and then to follow that question into what we see, the possibility of something that we've never seen before. And here, in this room, I hope, with eyes open and minds prepared, we were able to see something new. Now, with that being said, for those of us that do not know, April is National Poetry Month, which means, as a lover of poetry, we have a bunch of stuff, which I'm going to list now. All right. Tomorrow, we have another Larmore session. Sherwin and I will be in conversation at the Martha Washington Inn and Spa at 7 o'clock. There is a reception that happens at 6:30, so come early. You know, eat some food, drink wine if you're of age. Okay, only if you're of age. Next week, okay, good. All right, next week on Saturday, April 15th at 3 p.m., there's an open mic at The Girl in the Raven. If you know The Girl in the Raven, it's a wonderful place. Go there, drink coffee, eat food. Also, it closes at 3 p.m. on Saturdays, but they're keeping it open for us, special for us, so that we can be poets together. Okay, come, read poetry, sing a song, bring your guitar. I know you know someone with a guitar. Okay, every college has one. If you're the guy with the guitar, bring the guitar. Okay, but put it back in the closet when you go back home. All right, and then lastly, after that, we have the Leidig Lectureship in Poetry with the poet Carl Phillips. He will be giving a reading at the Martha Washington Inn and Spa on Tuesday, April 18th at 7 p.m. Again, also 6:30, there will be a reception. And then we'll deliver the Leidig lecture on Emory's campus on Wednesday, April 19th, also at 7 p.m. Lastly, Sherwin will be outside to sign broadsides if you that are available. And that, my love, concludes the night. Thank you so much, you all, for coming, and thank you, Sherwin, for being with us.